Welcome to Defense Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: South Africa's genocide case against Israel spotlights a global divide. China says U.S. military makes region more dangerous after Navy ship sails through Taiwan Strait. White House clinic improperly distributed controlled substances during previous administrations, new report says. Global trade is being disrupted by Red Sea attacks, war in Ukraine and low water in Panama Canal, UN says. Putin sends U.S. signal on Ukraine talks, sensing advantage in war. South Africa's genocide case against Israel spotlights a global divide. Washington Post. South Africa has appealed to the International Court of Justice, ICJ, to demand emergency measures to restrain Israel's offensive in the Gaza Strip. South Africa argues that Israel is carrying out genocide with its large-scale killing and maiming of civilians, its use of dumb bombs, mass displacement and destruction of neighborhoods, and deprivation of access to food, water, medical care, shelter, clothes, hygiene and sanitation to civilians. Israel denies the charges, claiming that South Africa has cherry-picked quotes that do not reflect the official policy of the country's war cabinet. The ICJ's ruling will be legally binding, but will require a UN Security Council resolution for there to be genuine mechanisms to implement them, such as sanctions. The US has previously shielded Israel from international censure. South Africa is leading the charge against Israel out of a sense of historic commitment to the Palestinian people, which it claims are subject to a regime of 21st-century apartheid. A cast of countries from the so-called Global South are backing South Africa's case and are leading or backing international legal action against Israel. China says U.S. military makes region more dangerous after Navy ship sails through Taiwan Strait. CNN. China accused the United States military of abusing international law and continuing a pattern of dangerous provocations in East Asia Thursday, after a U.S. Navy destroyer made the service's first transit of the Taiwan Strait of 2024. White House clinic improperly distributed controlled substances during previous administrations, new report says. Yahoo! The White House medical unit had severe and systemic problems with its pharmacy operations and provided health care to ineligible staffers before the Biden administration, according to a scathing report by the Defense Department's Office of Inspector General. Global trade is being disrupted by Red Sea attacks, war in Ukraine and low water in Panama Canal, UN says. The Globe and Mail. Global trade is being disrupted by attacks in the Red Sea, the war in Ukraine, and low water levels in the Panama Canal, according to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD. Shipping costs have surged, and energy and food costs are being affected. Major players in the shipping industry have temporarily halted using the Suez Canal, a vital route for energy and cargo between Asia and Europe, following attacks by Yemen's Houthi rebels. The trade volume going through the Suez Canal has dropped by 42% over the last 2 months, warns UNCTAD. Putin sends U.S. signal on Ukraine talks, sensing advantage in war. Japan Times. Russian President Vladimir Putin has reportedly reached out to the United States to explore the possibility of ending the war in Ukraine. It is unclear if these attempts at communication have been successful, as U.S. officials claim to be unaware of any overtures from Putin. The war in Ukraine has been ongoing for 3 years and has resulted in a deadly stalemate. Harry Connick Sr., longtime New Orleans district attorney and singer's dad, dies at 97. Associated Press. Harry Connick Sr., who was New Orleans district attorney for 3 decades and later faced allegations that his staff sometimes held back evidence that could have helped defendants, died Thursday at age 97. Connick died peacefully at his home in New Orleans with his wife, Londa, and children Susanna and musician and actor Harry Connick Jr., by his side, according to an obituary distributed by Harry Connick Jr.'s publicist. A cause of death was not provided. Biden spoke with ceasefire advocates as his team grapples with reality of regular protests. CNN. President Joe Biden was working a photo line backstage on Wednesday after receiving the United Auto Workers' coveted political endorsement at its annual conference in Washington, D.C., when a small group of union members supporting a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war approached him. Biden briefly spoke with the members about their concerns, in an exchange that multiple people, including Michigan Representative Debbie Dingell, who was present, described as respectful and cordial. The president also shook hands with the group and posed for photos, according to one source familiar with the matter. Is North Korea's Kim preparing for an actual war? Japan Times. North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, has been making unusual and aggressive statements in recent weeks, leading some to believe that he may be preparing for conflict with South Korea. He has called South Korea his nation's principal enemy and has threatened to completely occupy and subjugate the country. Kim has also indicated that North Korea no longer recognizes the maritime border between the two Koreas, leading to live-fire artillery drills in the area. Congress wants to ban China's largest genomics firm from the U.S. Here's why. Yahoo! Bipartisan legislation has been introduced in both houses of Congress that would effectively ban China's largest genomics company from doing business in the United States, after years of warnings from intelligence officials that Beijing is gathering genetic information about Americans and others in ways that could harm national security. The bills, backed by leaders of the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party and the Senate Homeland Security Committee, target BGI, formerly known as Beijing Genomics Institute, which in 2021 was blacklisted by the Pentagon as a Chinese military company. 5 company affiliates also have been sanctioned by the Commerce Department, which accused at least 2 of them of improperly using genetic information against ethnic minorities in China. Ellsworth AFB moves B-1 bombers to Texas amid crash probe. Yahoo! Some of the B-1B Lancer bombers stationed at Ellsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota, were moved to Dyess Air Force Base, Texas, after a Lancer crashed during a training mission earlier this month. Flight operations at Ellsworth have been suspended since the crash, and it is not clear when they will resume. The B-1 fleet has been reduced from about 100 to 45 aircraft. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Hexa, your resident observer from the Hexaverse. Welcome back to another edition of Hexa's Highlights, where I bring you the latest news from the 6-degree world. Today, we have an array of intriguing stories from around the globe. South Africa's genocide case against Israel is shining a spotlight on the global divide. China is accusing the U.S. military of dangerous provocations after a Navy ship sailed through the Taiwan Strait. The White House clinic is under fire for improperly distributing controlled substances. Global trade is being disrupted by conflicts in the Red Sea and Ukraine, as well as low water levels in the Panama Canal. Russian President Vladimir Putin is sending signals to the U.S. about ending the war in Ukraine. New Orleans longtime district attorney, Harry Connick Sr., has passed away at the age of 97. President Joe Biden spoke with ceasefire advocates during an event in Washington, D.C. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's aggressive statements have raised concerns about the possibility of an actual war. Congress is seeking to ban China's largest genomics firm from the U.S. And finally, B-1 bombers stationed at Ellsworth Air Force Base have been moved to Texas following a crash. Now, let's dive into some analysis. The South Africa-Israel case is a stark reminder of the deep divisions in the international community when it comes to conflicts in the Middle East. It's no secret that the Israeli-Palestinian issue is a highly contentious and sensitive topic. South Africa's historic commitment to the Palestinian people is driving their strong stance against Israel. Whether or not the ICJ ruling will have a significant impact depends on whether it receives the backing of the UN Security Council. Given the US's previous support for Israel, it remains to be seen if they will change their stance. China's accusation against the US military is another example of the ongoing tensions in East Asia. The Taiwan Strait passage by the US Navy destroyer is seen as a provocation by China, who views Taiwan as a part of its territory. The US-China relationship is already strained, and this incident will only add fuel to the fire. It will be interesting to see how both countries navigate these tensions in the coming months. The disruptions in global trade highlighted by the UNCTAD are a cause for concern. The attacks in the Red Sea, the war in Ukraine, and low water levels in the Panama Canal are all contributing to rising shipping costs and affecting energy and food prices. The Suez Canal, in particular, plays a vital role in trade between Asia and Europe, so any disruption there has significant consequences. As the world becomes more interconnected, these disruptions have far-reaching effects that can impact economies and livelihoods. Now, my dear viewers, what are your thoughts on these stories? Are you surprised by South Africa's genocide case against Israel? How do you see the tensions between the US and China playing out? Do you think global trade will continue to be disrupted in the coming months? Let's get the conversation going. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6 do brief via email.